Okay, I think we'll get going. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our breakout today. I know we were up against some stiff competition for your next 30 minutes, but I'm confident you'll find it worthwhile. So whilst you'll be muted throughout the session, we'd invite you to ask questions via the chat function, and we aim to put some of those to our panel at the end. I'm Colin Sinclair, Partner and Head of Technology and Commercial at Burness, Paull. As you may know, we're a full-service UK law firm serving fintech and financial services from our Scottish headquarters. And if you're interested in finding out more about us, then do visit our stand in the exhibition hall, which includes our recently launched Introducing the Innovators video showcase, featuring some of our most exciting emerging scale-up fintech and other tech clients, and our 20 Fintech Insights Scotsman article, which inspired today's topic choice. We all know the sector has been hit hard by the global pandemic and there are challenges ahead. Figures from fintech trade body Innovate Finance show that the sector has seen a 30% reduction in investment across the UK from 590 million in the second quarter of this year compared to more than 940 million for the same period in 2019. Whilst we certainly don't want to gloss over that, our focus today will be on how fintech has adapted and a positive look forward into the opportunities, a £7 billion opportunity for the UK economy, according to the UK Treasury. To discuss this, I'm joined by a panel of fintech all-stars who embody that build back better spirit. So I'm going to ask them each to briefly introduce themselves and their businesses and invite them to share how those businesses and the sector has adapted to the challenges of recent months. And if I could start with you, please, Andrew.
Of course, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. So I'm Andrew Duncan. I'm the founder of a business called SOAR. SOAR provides community-based banks, so that's things like credit unions and community development financial institutes, which is a bit of a mouthful, so I'll call them CDFIs. We provide them with things like white-labeled mobile banking apps and web-based equivalents of this, and it's all kind of hung together with our SOAR banking platform. So this is really our hub that allows this sector to integrate with other fintechs like ourselves and others that are out there, and even into some of the bigger institutions like Experian and so on. So for instance, what we're doing is we're digitizing a lot of the processes like applying for a loan. So yesterday, if you applied for a loan at a credit union, they would get quite excited if they could give you the money inside 24 hours, and that would be quite a good achievement for a lot of that market. We can deliver that completely digitally and in a self-service mechanism in less than 10 minutes. And it's the same with a lot of other processes in that space. As you can well imagine, the pandemic has had a major impact on our market. In fact, it's been really hit hard on the basis that most of the money that's made in this space is in consumer lending. And certainly in the early months, consumer lending was down by about 70%. So that ultimately resulted in a huge loss of interest income for this space. To make matters worse, things like payment holiday requests went up, so that went up by about 128%. And although this might sound counterintuitive, savings also increased by 14 or so percent, which has a negative impact on the capital to asset ratios and things that these institutions have to manage. Over the summer, things have recovered a little bit. So sort of month on month, we've seen an increase in the amount of lending and the lending activity that's been ongoing. But generally speaking, the books just haven't returned to the levels that they were at last year. And in fact, I think almost all of the organisations I've spoken to have kind of talked about completely canning their growth forecasts for 2020 and really looking at 2021 as the opportunity to grow. It's kind of like just let's keep the lights on, hit basic survival mode, get through 2020 into December, and then we'll look at 2021 in new light. Naturally, as you can imagine, this has had an impact on SOAR as well, as we're the sort of technology partner that provides solutions into the space. We've found that the market really needs our solution, and they really want it, because if you can imagine, branches closing means that people digitally can interact with their financial institute through something like SOAR, so that's a good thing. But obviously in our space, money is tight, and when money's tight, decisions are therefore slow, and so that's just had a knock-on effect on us.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That's great. Colin, how are things at Float?
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Yeah, so we really help businesses at Float with their ability to see into the future and make better financial decisions. And we've obviously had a bit of an uptick and surge in demand, especially in the accounting profession. Lots of accountants, bookkeepers coming to us saying, can you help us, because we've got so many clients that need to forecast in a way they've never needed to before. And for us, we've always kind of felt like this shouldn't, having a real-time cash flow forecast shouldn't just be the thing you turn to in a crisis. It's now with all the tools, with the open banking, with accounting solutions like Xero and QuickBooks, you can get that real-time kind of dashboard coming in. And then using tools like Float to be able to look into the future and do scenario planning. So we've seen a big surge in demand there, which has been really challenging for us, moving at the same time into a new model of working from home and and hiring and onboarding new people that we've never met in real life before. So it's been a big challenge for us. We're also trying to anticipate getting back into an office at some point. So we don't want to be a fully remote company. We want to kind of move into more of a hybrid model, which would create some opportunities to be together and to brainstorm in the office. But we're also thinking, we're not going back full time to the office anytime soon. So we need more space. We need a different type of space to do that. So we're in the middle of an office move, but we're not sure as to when we'll be fully able to utilize that space at the moment. So definitely a bit of uncertainty, but also lots of opportunities, which I think we'll move on to in a moment.
Great, thanks, Colin. That's a nice challenge to have in some ways, but a challenge nonetheless. Rod, obviously Alba hit the headlines fairly recently, and an interesting time to be really getting that business going and off the ground. Can you tell us a bit about Alba and how that's all going?
Thanks, Callum. Yeah, so Alba, or as it will be, Alba Bank is a brand new Scottish-based bank specifically for SMEs in that zone, and we're still in the startup process. We're pretty close to getting our restricted authorization now from the Bank of England, and that has been the journey really that we've been following through for the last couple of years. The roots of Alba really are born out of almost the team that was with me at the last savings bank in Airdrie back in the day. So it's very much a community-based focus approach to what we're doing. Plenty of emphasis on the ESG side of things in order to build out the bank in what will be a little bit different. It's traditional and it's kind of fintech at the same time. So the idea being very much that we have bankers who go to speak to SME companies and understand their business and they know them, rather than contact centres based elsewhere. And at the same time, we effectively have the bank on a laptop in front of us that we can do whatever we would have been able to do in a branch or whatever at that point in time. So that's kind of the proposition that we're looking to be bringing to the market shortly. What differences have we seen, really? It's been quite interesting because obviously we're only in the initial stages that there really are only 4 or 5 of us still. And we were always geared up to be operating not in an office. So when we couldn't go to our office, not much actually changed. I think for us, the biggest thing coming to terms with is that we haven't had to jump on a plane and go to London twice a week, which is probably in common with a lot of people. But that is certainly what I and the team did all the time, really, up and down to the banking people down there. So it's been quite interesting to see that change. I can't say that there's been a moment that I haven't gone, oh, I'm glad. I wish I was getting up at 5 in the morning. But nevertheless, you think, oh, a bit more travel would be nice at times. We haven't seen much change to how we've gone. Obviously, the teams we've been interacting with have adapted themselves to the working from home environment. because we've been in an IT build out stage, a lot of that was offshored anyway, so it hasn't really noticed much of a change. And you know, and even the regulatory environment's adapted to that with the same way as everybody else. So I think that for us, the key thing that we've noticed differences in the capital markets. It's taking much longer to get in front of people, to raise capital, to have the discussions. And I think that's probably been the challenge for us that we've hit as a result of the pandemic going forward at the moment anyway.
Thanks very much, Rod, and great to see a new name on the Scottish banking scene. Nicola, what about yourself? I mean, maybe you could give us your perspective from the, I suppose, the FCA and the Fintech Scotland, with your Fintech Scotland hat on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Fintech Scotland has really, I probably would categorise it across three main words, if you like, Callum. So I think we've really seen the resilience in the community in the fintech community here in Scotland. So like everybody else that's had to think about moving and working from home and working differently, we've had that real resilience, as Colin has talked about, Andrew and Rod have all talked about, you know, building their teams and really keeping the show on the road. And we've definitely seen that right throughout the community. We've seen organisations really re-energise as well and think about, you know, that kind of opportunity to repivot perhaps their business. We've definitely seen recruitment happening in this space. So we're definitely seeing very positive indications there. And then I think, you know, the other thing that we are seeing is that opportunity to help businesses really refocus. So COVID has certainly, that COVID time machine has accelerated the adoption of digital and really helped people focus the mind about what they needed to do. So we're seeing quite a lot of collaboration and fintechs seizing that opportunity to think about how they can really help the financial services industry move and embrace that digitalization that's needed, and think about addressing some real problems. So as well as helping the industry refocus, we're also seeing those fintechs come around problems specifically in the SME market, as Colin has talked about, and also in the financial well-being market, as Andrew has talked about. So we're really focusing on those solutions that will drive change for businesses and for people.
Brilliant, and that's a really positive message, and maybe to take us into our next section, which very much is focused on the future. And just a reminder, folks, if you've got any questions for the panel, then please do use the chat function, and we'll try and pick those up at the end. Nicola, just staying with you for a moment then, where do you see the biggest opportunities and challenges going into 2021 and the next normal, particularly, I guess, the biggest opportunities?
So I think, Callum, with every crisis, of course, there's opportunity, and we're certainly seeing that potential for collaboration and that really great opportunity now to come around and think about what does strategic collaboration really mean. And I think we're seeing some of that progress, particularly in the financial services sector, as we think about introducing research and innovation, particularly in this area. So that opportunity to collaborate across sector, really invite academia in and the research communities in to build up our understanding of what indeed does this crisis allow us to then think about financial services really of the future and get some of that innovative thinking on board. So, you know, we've seen great announcements recently for the Global Open Finance Centre of Excellence. I think that's one fantastic example here in Scotland of that ability to build collaboration across the industry, across academia, to really build a utility that will help us in that research space to advance some of these issues and come around and find innovative solutions where we can really think about collaboration. So I'm an absolute believer in that kind of power of many and coming together, collaborating positively to drive progressive change. And I think that's our opportunity in the research space, with GOFCO being one example.
Brilliant, and you know, Fintech Scotland obviously at the very heart of that. And what about yourself, Colin? Where do you see the biggest opportunities, I suppose, both for Float and for the ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think as others have mentioned, we are moving into a time, we're living in a time of uncertainty. So the opportunity within that is to look and see how can we be of assistance as products. So, you know, we're thinking really from a product and marketing point of view, how are we helping? And you know, if that's our ambition as a company at the moment, is to be helpful in this time of uncertainty. So I think it is in some ways there's an element of, you know, some people are like Andrew was saying, have their head down and they're thinking about next year. And just riding through this, but also I think there's an opportunity to think about how do we help those businesses, you know, reframe our services that we're offering as something that can be really useful in this time. You know, for us particularly, what we're doing around that is about getting your finances in shape. So, you know, a lot of businesses caught kind of swimming naked in a way when the tide went out with not having those financial systems ready and in place, and we're really trying to help businesses now think about how they, not just how they utilize a service like Float, but you know, have they got the right accountant? Have they got the advice that they need in the business? Have they got are they doing their bookkeeping on a timely basis? That's helping them get that real time dashboard of their finances, and then moving into scenario planning and just being able to tweak things and move quickly when they need to in the future. So I think it's a really good opportunity to that we can help with in that, and that's one of the ways we think about it. You know, there's so many good tools and solutions out there that can be utilized now and maybe in ways that we hadn't done before. So like Rod was saying, you know, we're not having to travel to London as much. There's much more opportunity to take more meetings. So one of the things we've been looking at is how do we make our meetings both internally and externally much better than they've been, to maximize the time. And again, you know, it's just one of those things that might not have happened without the crisis. So so we're really thinking about how we spend our time and how we can help.
Terrific, thank you. And Rod, what about yourself? Where do the biggest opportunities lie for Alba in the sector?
Yeah, so I think you know, the technical challenges, you know, first briefly in the bank, because the banks are really involved in the support measures at the heart of this here. So it's dealing with that, and then the fallout from that. That obviously is going to present actually an opportunity, I think, for Alba once we get started. I think the incumbents there specifically have got less time to talk to customers. The normal credit discussions and ongoing are restricted because focus is on how to deliver the emergency measures, and I think that provides an opportunity there specifically for Alba in the market. In terms of that fintech involvement and being slightly wider, I think looking at things like for open banking initiatives, widening that out, you know, giving the ability to work with the customers, reducing their dependency on having to supply data to the bank, which, you know, even when I, you know, worked in companies is a pain in the neck. You know, that's something you want to minimize and make easier wherever possible. And I think open banking can assist in that. I think the continued the continued evolution of business payments, and over the course of the next few years, what actually a current account, what does that look like? What does that mean? It's not going to be the same as as it meant before. And I think that, you know, these are the interesting opportunities and aspects that are only increased. At the most day-to-day contactless, you know, was what, £30, it's 45 now. These are just always evolving, and I think that's the opportunities.
Brilliant. Yeah, so a few themes emerging there around rethinking the service and the, you know, customer engagement as well, and just how businesses are actually operating in practice. So definitely a few common themes there. Andrew, what about yourself?
Well, I mean, it's like I'm roughly going to say the same sort of thing, I suppose, around the same themes, but obviously SOAR's serving in a market that's really trying to have a positive impact on society. So we're trying to help consumers have less reliance on high cost credit, and CDFIs and credit unions, generally speaking, can help, but their challenge is that they've got problems with things like availability, convenience, and their image. And I suppose this is where these sorts of themes come into play. So I mean, not every credit union, but a lot of credit unions don't look great on the high street. They don't look appealing to go into, for instance, and it's about trying to change that. So I kind of feel that quite often I sound a bit like a broken record here, but I always like talk about Monzo and Starling and Revolut. And, you know, these guys are kind of, from a consumer's perspective at least, hitting the nail on the head. They're delivering a really good looking service, something that, you know, when you open the card for the first time, you get that warm, fuzzy feeling. There's lots of cool features that, you know, particularly younger consumers want to get access to. And generally speaking, you get your answers and your results now. So it's kind of like, you know, you get that hit that you would get from going onto Facebook or Instagram or whatever the latest, you know, TikTok-y thing is that's coming out. And really what we're trying to do is make this sort of, give this sort of same sort of feeling to the credit union and CDFI space, so that we can really squeeze that payday lender and high cost credit market. And, you know, that will then refocus society's view of, well, I can go and get credit from these places, but instead I've actually got this great option here, which is community based. The profits are being put back into the community there. It's helping the local society around me and so on. And ultimately, but ultimately that's going to be a good thing for society. It's going to be a good challenge to solve. And what we need to do as a fintech is give them a tech platform that they can scale on. That's going to provide us with a whole bunch of challenges. Now, we've obviously got the problem of credit union boards are kind of full of old crusties generally. I think that's maybe a technical term, perhaps. So I see Rod's laughing there. Rod, are you on a board? I hope not.
Afterwards.
But it is a problem. You know, there's a lot of older people that generally don't understand where the tech can take them and what that can do for them. We are finding, though, that the government is very supportive. We've had a lot of support both north and south of the border, and I've got a feeling that into 2021 that's going to continue. I think there's going to be more and more initiatives being pulled into this space, particularly as people are losing jobs and there's going to be a need for improved financial well-being. So from Sour's perspective, I guess our next step will be to raise equity investment. And this is something we've not done to date, but I'm certainly aware that there's more and more investors out there that are keen to have a social impact. And that's something that obviously the world is now in absolute dire need of. So if we can kind of get access to finance like that, then I think that's going to help to grow the market as well.
Absolutely. No, thanks for that, Andrew. And obviously, there's a huge amount of experience on this call with some very successful businesses. So really keen to tap into that insight for the benefit of our listeners. What are your top tips and insights for fintechs that are either getting going or are growing in 2021? And if I could start with Rod on that one.
Thanks, Callum. Yeah, I've got two quick top tips that I to list out here. I think the first one, and I agree completely with Andrew here, it's about customer focus and being responsive. It's being there for your customer. Remember, always remember that, you know, if you can fix a customer's problem in a way that is memorable, they'll forget the issue arose in the first place, and the goodwill you will have built up will be sticky going forward. And I think my second quick tip, effectively, is particularly in these times when we're all seeing each other on screens, is just to look out for your team. Do you know, I always think that's really important about, you know, collaboration and working together. Just to always communicate, make sure you've got their interests at heart. And, you know, it's not always possible to avoid cost reductions in this kind of situation, but just, you know, try to keep them informed and involved in the process as much as possible to keep that, to keep everyone's spirits moving along.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely agree. Rod, thank you. And Colin, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the big things we've just found, and it's not really, I don't think it's related to the pandemic, but we have been doing a lot more user research than we've ever done in the last sort of 6 months. We started taking on, you know, we did that with third party initially, and it's kind of once you start, and we've always been very user focused, but when you start working with people who are doing that at a significantly higher level, both in their ability and in the rate of the feedback that you're getting, it's fascinating to see that. And so we just had a huge amount more visibility recently on getting customer feedback. And again, I was just chatting to my wife about it this morning, saying it's probably been the thing, you know, if there's not many things that I wish we'd done differently, and that's probably the one that I wish we'd done sooner, because it's just opened up so many opportunities for us. And the second thing for us is really drilling into your niche and understanding, you know, for Float, you know, we speak to so many different types of businesses and so many different types of customer. And actually, you know, you could be speaking to a one-person business, and you could be speaking to a 50 or 100-person business the next day, and really finding the niche and focusing on that and giving yourself permission to do that has been a huge, you know, it's been a huge help for us, because we've realized that even within a niche that there's different types of users, and this is allowing us to both build product and marketing, and get product and marketing working really closely together, to make sure that our products are scratching where the customers are itching. So that's been a huge thing that we've taken. And again, finally, I would say, to Rod's point, team health, you know, this has been really hard for a lot of people. And, you know, we've been really just having to up our game in terms of just making sure that we're looking out for the team, and thinking about how we can use technology. So we started working with a company called Spill, which allows people to anonymously initiate support over Slack, if they're feeling that they need to talk to somebody and they don't feel that they can reach out to a colleague. And that's actually been, you know, from the feedback that I've heard, it's been really positive. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but those are probably three for me that I would throw out there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Colin. And you know, that continuous customer engagement and employee engagement, so important, but very challenging for a growing business. I know Andrew mentioned the challenger banks, and I know they've had their challenges engaging, you know, some shiny cards, but some challenging customer service from time to time. Andrew, what are your top tips?
Well, I was going to focus more on the fact that the country is going to change so massively between now and Christmas and then into the new year, that I think we're going to have to be mindful of the fact that there are going to be millions of people that are either unemployed or underemployed. And what opportunities can you take from that? How can you help those people either get back into work or get their finances back on track? Because they're going to need help with financial management, doing more with less. I suppose there's going to be an awful lot around education and how they can go about living in a different society in a different way, you know, based on the fact that they won't have as much available to them. I think there's going to be a need for a lot more debt support. So whether that can just be delivered by the charities and things and the organisations that exist just now, or is there an opportunity for fintech to come in and work together to help there? And then can that be linked in with things like housing support, other purchases that you might need to make in order just to, you know, like hit basic survival, I suppose. And you know, what could you offer there? So those are the sorts of things that I'm thinking about for what we could evolve our technology and products into, and then how that might be then served through credit unions and community development financial institutes. But I suspect there are a lot of people in the audience just now that could think of a lot better ideas than I can, and deliver that out as well.
No, completely. Thanks, Andrew. And your community support and kindness so important at the moment. I know the ecosystem has done its bit, including through Fintech Scotland, but also the wider tech community, things like Scottish Tech Army and Scotland is. Nicola, do you have any sort of thoughts on that? Maybe your top tips from an FCA or a Fintech Scotland perspective?
So I think, you know, from a Fintech Scotland perspective, those opportunities to really address a need, we see great prospects for organisations that are really clear on the need that they're trying to serve and their route to market. So the clarity that you can bring to that and those conversations will just help others help you. So that real clarity around that need and route to market, I think, would be something that I'd offer. And I think, you know, Colin, this way we're working at the moment provides us with a really great opportunity to think about inclusion, you know, and diversity generally as well. And the fantastic thing I think about fintech is that ability to work across sector and to think about ideas from other sectors. So I think we'll see more of that cross-sectoral working. I think we'll see more of that blend. I think that offers us a real opportunity to bring more diversity into the conversation of financial services. And I think that will only help us progress. So I can see opportunities in the health and fintech space coming together and really thinking about how we progress both those issues, health and financial well-being. Rod's also mentioned, you know, values and as of the others. So that ESG space, you know, I can see real opportunities for fintech as they think about values-driven businesses and how they perhaps engage with the energy sector. So that kind of cross-sectoral piece, I think there's real opportunity. And finally, of course, you would expect me to say this, I think, but I think RegTech will offer a real opportunity too for us as we advance and we really think about how we help the financial services industry become more efficient. I think they'll certainly come around those opportunities, wanting to drive efficiencies within their own businesses, and I think RegTech will offer us that too.
Terrific, thanks. And not only sectoral boundaries being broken down, obviously, but geographical ones as well. Somebody said to me the other day that geography is history, which I quite liked as a quote. So yeah, that's obviously some fantastic collaboration opportunities right across geographies. So we've got one question, which is Andrew will be shifting uncomfortably in his seat about at the moment, which is as one of the crusties referenced by Andrew, can the panel share their views on how they will each add value to their community? So let me come to Andrew first on that one, if I may.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm referencing a specific old crust, like a specific type of old crust, and I think in that case, it's really about understanding that fintech can provide you with a really good business case for delivering your service at scale, but there is an investment needed, and the investment's not just in money, but it's in time as well. And I think the market that I play into, they quite often want things done immediately on a shoestring budget, you know, in almost like it's already very well evolved and established. And the reality is the technology and the businesses that are coming into the space aren't yet. And I think that that's something that I'm looking for more understanding from the boards and the people that I speak to and the businesses that I'm speaking to help us deliver what we're trying to deliver.
Yeah. And Rod, I suspect I know what you're going to say here, but how do you feel that Alba will be adding value to the community?
I think the key thing from the community aspect on the banking point of view is that I think recently, and get the last 10 years since the global financial crash, banks are at the forefront and you know are the epitome of what everybody wishes to rail against. Alba's got to be different from that. You know, we want to go back to the day where you didn't actually know who the person's bank was. The bank has got to almost be the wind beneath the wings of the business in that kind of way, not at the front and the foremost of it. And I think that's particularly where the likes of Alba should be able to add value into its community and supporting its customers like that.
Terrific, thanks. Wind beneath the wings. So bursting into song any moment there. Colin, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, we've always tried to give back to the community, and you know, one of the big communities we've been part of is Codebase, where our office is. So you know, just talking to other founders and CEOs, and trying to connect and share war stories and support, connect people to investors, good investors, because there's you know, they're not all great from the reports, and you know, I think we just try and it's really being open to sharing knowledge and getting on stuff like this and doing what we can to help people and connect people, because I think it is that connection point that is really going to save people a lot of time and hassle.
Terrific, thank you. And Nicola, maybe leave the last word to you on this one. Obviously, Fintech Scotland already does a lot for the community, but any strong views on that in terms of community?
Yeah, our values are all based on community, whether that's building a fintech community and the brilliant, you know, close to 150 fintech businesses that we have here in Scotland, all learning from each other and that sense of community. And then our role to take that fintech message more broadly, not just into the financial services sector, but to really build that inclusive cluster where we invite consumer organisations, law enforcement, citizens generally to this conversation of fintech, where we want to understand the issues and the problems so that we can take those problems to this fantastic innovative community and help really drive some solutions. So it's that connection that's valuable, and we have to keep talking, collaborating and sharing so we can drive real change. Fantastic.
Fantastic. I wouldn't even try to paraphrase, couldn't have said it any better myself. So thank you very much, Nicola. So unfortunately we are out of time, but if you have a question that wasn't answered or you would like to chat with the panel, I believe they've agreed to be at our stand for the next 15 or 20 minutes, the Burness Paull stand in the main exhibition hall, so we'll hopefully see some of you there. It only remains for me to say a sincere thanks to all of our panellists today, to Rod, Colin, Andrew and Nicola. And I'm just imagining you standing and clapping at home. So please go and have a great lunch, folks. Come and engage with us at the stand and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much, Callum.